to know any piece of literary work, we must peep into the age in which it was produced, because the social, political, economic, and moral circumstances of that very society matter a lot. This video is mainly concerned with the age of Chaucer. So, a political, historical, and literary background of that age will be discussed in this session. Hello and Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to my channel, and I am Mehreen. Three boisterous events of this age must be kept in mind while reading Chaucerian age, because they had a great influence on making of this age. First most important event of this age was 100 Years' War from 1337 to 1453. This war was between England and France. England had many little wars with France, as the French had a strong hold over England. These intermittent wars continued for 100 years. The second most important event of this age was Black Death. Between 1346 to 1353, it occurred thrice and killed almost one third European population in just 5 years. And it was a kind of famine. Third event of this age was Peasants' Revolt, which occurred in 1381. These three events are interlinked and they had a strong impact on the literary and socio-political situation of that age. Edward II, from 1307 to 1328, was the King of England, and he was an utter failure as a king. Trier was empty, and this empty trier, with a great burden of 100 Years' War, led to many events which ultimately proved a disaster. The most suffered part of the society were peasants. And of course, this war had proved a great burden on the part of government. These peasants were being pressurized to pay more taxes to pay for the 100-year war expenses. In response to this financial pressure, these peasants started a rebellion, which is known as Peasant Revolt. This revolt was led by Wat Tyler, thus also called as Tyler Revolt. By 1369, the fortunes of England had begun to decline. The age, which began with glory and prosperity, led within 3 decades to all round decay. The wars with France had brought great victories, but they had brought no material gains. England was masters of one third of France, but the protection of this possession was very costly. By 1371, Edward III had lost all his allies and all his conquests. Chivalry was a special institution in the Middle Ages. It was a strange amalgam of war, love, and religion. The knights used to go about fully armed, always ready to fight for noble causes. They fought for Christianity, for the country, and for defending the honor of women. In this age, chivalry had started cracking down due to various causes. The English yeomen, who were foot soldiers and were equipped with bows and arrows, inflicted a crushing defeat on the fully armed and mounted knights of France. From now onwards, fighting did not remain the monopoly of the knights and squires. The invention of gunpowder caused the great end of chivalry. Chaucer's knight is the last remnant of a glorious race. Here, I want to give a brief introduction of England of that time. The streets of that England were narrow and unpaved. There were gutters or open sewers in the middle of streets. Southwark was on the opposite bank of the River Thames. This was connected to London by means of a stone bridge. At Southwark, there were gardens and round wooden buildings for beer baiting and cockfighting. Here was that old tabard inn. There people used to gather to go on pilgrimages. This is the same old tabard inn where the characters of Canterbury Tales were together to go for a pilgrimage. Almost half of the population of England was swept away by the Black Death. Those who survived the plague died of want and hunger. There was a serious shortage of labor. Many lands remained unplugged, in others, harvest remains ungathered. The prices, of course, rose very high, and money fetched only one fourth or one fifth of its former values. Laborers naturally demanded higher wages. The king supported the landlords and issued a proclamation saying that the wages must not be increased. The workers developed a sense of independence and started breaking the laws. Parliament now passed a law that workmen who broke the rules and could not be arrested would be declared outlaws and could be shot dead by anyone. This created very great restlessness and discontent. The law abiding spirit of the people vanished. To make matters worse, the government imposed a tax in 1381 on all persons except beggars to pay for the French wars. On June 12th, 1381, these peasants upon Blackheath outside London gathered. They encamped there. The house of Gaunt was burned and many other buildings were destroyed. The king met them and accepted all their demands and promised to issue orders accordingly. But unfortunately, no orders were issued. The rebels created a reign of offered London. Then the young king boldly met the rebels and offered to lead them. He promised to meet all their demands. He led them outside the city. Once they were out of London, the king went back on all his promises. The army disarmed the rebels and drove them into the countryside. The leaders were all killed and the followers were brutally massacred. Thus, the revolt was suppressed, but it left very great bitterness behind among the peasants. The suppression of this revolt led to the exercise of arbitrary power by the barons and large scale corruption among the officials of government. For example, the barons and all the authorities were responsible for purchasing supplies for the royal household. They took these things from the peasants and seldom paid them. And of course, this all practice created an unrest among the people of society. Besides this socio political situation of Chaucerian age, I want to discuss the religious part of the society too. Let's talk about the church of that society. Church was very corrupt. The Pope pretended to be not only the religious head of the Christians but also their secular head. He used to extract a big amount from England every year. The pardoners, friars, summoners, and parish priests all exploited the faith and superstitions of the people and earned huge amounts. In spite of the corruption of the church dignitaries, The common people had firm faith in religion. All classes of people loved to go on pilgrimages to the shrines of the great saints, as we have seen in the Canterbury Tales. The intellectual classes, however, refused to accept authority on faith. They wanted to exercise their private judgment on all issues. The questioning spirit was evident in all spheres of life. This age also marked the beginning of England's naval glory. The mariners of England were becoming famous. They anticipated the naval heroes of a later age. The shipmen of Chaucer had been to all the neighboring ports and knew even the far off west. Trade and industry were in a flourishing stage. Import and export trade expanded a lot. Merchants became very rich and they started getting high social and political status. Many merchant princes became power in the state, and even the king had to take them into the confidence before arriving at important decisions. Many of the merchants were cheats. They adulterated their goods and used short ways. They also robbed the people by artificially raising the prices of essential goods. This age also saw many progress in many other fields of life. Gone were the days when the king and his nobles had all the powers and the wealth in the state. The middle class, consisting of doctors, lawyers, merchants, scholars, clergymen, and artisans, were becoming rich and powerful. There was also considerable constitutional progress during these years. Parliament became more powerful and placed numerous curbs on the authority of the king. The people loved pageantry. There were extravagant expenditure on dresses. They loved crying colors. Even the horses of the knights were decorated with plates of gold and silver. The pictures of Chaucer's pilgrims show the gaudy colors of their dresses. In the medieval ages, learning was a possession of the clergymen only. Chaucer's clerk represents this class. Science in the 14th century was no better than superstitions. The doctors depend upon astronomy, which meant astrology. Women had no special position in this society. The church regarded them as a source of temptation. For the knight, his lady was a goddess to be won over by service and devotion, but gradually this relationship was disappearing. In common household, women had an inferior status. It was fundamentally man's world. So this was a brief introduction to the Chaucer's age. I have tried to discuss all the social, political, religious, and economic situation of the society of Chaucerian age, so that you may be able to understand the literary works of Chaucer and his contemporaries. In the next video, inshallah, I will try to discuss and I will try to touch all the major works of Chaucer and his contemporaries. So be prepared for that and keep watching my videos. Thanks for being with Mehreen for such a long time. Thank you so much.